Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. So we've made it. The season has finished yesterday, and we're just going to have a bit of a review of the whole season, really. Hopefully, it won't take too long, but it is sometimes important to reflect and think about different decisions you could have made, decisions that could have gone better, and it helps you learn for future seasons. So hopefully, it'll be interesting to you guys. I will just say, if you don't make it to the end of the video, thank you so much for all the support this season. In terms of the channel and how it's grown, I think we started the season on single digit subscribers, and now we're in the late 50s, which is absolutely fantastic and such a big growth on the channel. I even had a video which had 1.3 thousand views on it, which was just ridiculous. So I really do appreciate it. It's a small channel, but hopefully, the people that do watch do get bits and pieces out of it, or at least feel better in their own teams when they see my team not do as well. And thank you so much. So let's get into it, and we're going to look at the first game week. So this was game week 1 at the start of the season, and looking at the team, it looks like there's loads of red flags on there. But that is the players' current availability as of now, not how they were back then. So looking back, there are some glaring gaps like no Haaland, which we'll talk about in a second. There's no Kane, players like that. And it's funny because, at the start of the season at the time, players like Cancelo, Trent, they seemed like an absolute must. And they ended up not being the case, or at least not at the start of the season. I'd gone with triple Arsenal, which was obviously a great shout, and I did stick with Saka all season, even at the start when Martinelli looked like he was on form. Saka's price went from 8 mil to 7.7 mil, I think, and then back up to 8.4 mil over the course of the season. And I think one thing I've learned is to go with form quicker, especially early on when more fantasy league managers are playing and engaged, and your rank can decrease very quickly. Son blanked for the next 5 game weeks after this. I look back, and that was something where I could maybe have jumped off him a bit quicker. And Lingard was someone that I thought was worth a risk. He wasn't too expensive, and I thought he'd be a big player for Forest. But I actually didn't stick with him too long, which I'm quite glad about. Although one plus was getting someone like Andreas in, who probably ended up being the bargain player of the season, I think. And someone like Undav, and it's funny how Undav now, he's actually scored 5 in the last 8 game weeks and got an assist to end the season. When I got him in, I thought he'd do that all season. I really thought that he'd come in from abroad where he played really well and he would just hit the ground running. And I think another lesson is to kind of go with players that have been in the league, or at least been in a big league in Europe and contributed well there. I think Undav came over from Belgium, which was, maybe not the most competitive league. And I think a player that has come from abroad and has to settle in and change the lifestyle is always worth, having an asterisk next to the name. And I do remember talking about it at the time, in the fact of saying, look, you don't want too many players like that, but the occasional one or two players is worth it. And I think that's the balance that I did get in the team. It's just unfortunate that Undav wasn't a player that worked out in that sense. Um, so yeah, we're gonna go on, and the best game week of the season was game week 8. Uh, Other than the one that was cancelled because of cancelled, I think in game week 7, where I actually got rank 1. I think for not making any transfers. I think there was a few people that ended up with that rank, but at the time it looked pretty good on the record. I'd stuck with Son since the beginning, and I was probably the only one that did that since hence the big rise in rank. And to be honest, I think I've done really well considering there was no Haaland. And it makes you think how much higher I could have been with him in. I worked out that I'd missed out on 96 points from Haaland in like the first 7 game weeks. And you've got to consider that some of that would have been captaincy as well. So it's probably about 150 points, total that I'd missed out on. And I didn't know it at the time, but this would be my highest rank overall until game week 28. So I wouldn't even reach this rank again from the 20 game weeks, plus the space in between for the World Cup. And 8 weeks later, I'd have my lowest rank of over 5 mil, just as the World Cup started. And I was still kind of fighting not having Haaland. It was frustrating as when I was picking my draft team, he was always in them at the start of the season. I remember saying, we should get Haaland in. Um, he's going to score points. And I think maybe I was considering what I just talked about with Undav in the sense that, he's coming from abroad. He might take a bit of time to settle. But I think moving on to him quicker is something that I definitely could have done. And, in game week 9, I had a huge uh, decrease of about 2.5 million in the next game when Haaland got a hat trick and 2 assists in the same game. And I still remember keeping up with that match um, and just thinking it was the whole season down the pan, really. I think he got 23 points. A lot of people had capped him. You just think, oh, God, it's crazy sometimes how one decision can really sort of affect your season. And then you kind of trying to claw that back. It's a lot easier to decrease rank uh, in one game week than it is to increase rank in one game week, I think. Um, so yeah, I think being open to swapping someone like Haaland even for a hit is something that you got to be aware of if it's an extreme player like that. So the lowest point for me, like I said, was in game week 16, where the teams on the screen scored a season low in points for me, 27 points there, which to be honest, is pretty hard to do, to have like no attacking returns. Looking at that team there, and no clean sheets really as well. Highest scorer was Ben White, who must have got like a clean sheet and some bonus points. And you look at Ward on the bench with 11 points, you just think, oh gosh, should have not only played Ward, should have captained him. But that's obviously something that you're never going to really do. It was right before the World Cup, so there was no chance for a quick fix at the time. Although the World Cup mini series did give me a bit of a break, and thanks for all the support with that as well. By the way, that was cool to do something like that and break away from fantasy league and do something different. So hopefully, if you did keep up with that, you enjoyed that series as well. But the break did give me a chance to reassess, and although there's a lot of ground to make up, I gave it a good go. And as you can see on the screen, I did get 13 green arrows in a row, which was a great run to have as well. And you do look at the bench, and there's quite a lot of bench points in there as well. But those green arrows really did sort of spur me back on and did feel, momentum. I know it's kind of not really a thing when you can have momentum when there's not really much control you can have over the players that are playing. But I do think that, that was something that really sort of got me back in and engaged. And, it is a shame that the season didn't start as well, but we did stick with it. We didn't give up, and we persevered, which is a good thing to be positive about. So on to the game week 34, and this was my highest points tally in a week with 116. I did actually break the 100-point barrier twice as well as a 99 points. I think I also got 91 in another game week. And I used my bench boost in this. It was a double game week, quite recent, but although the bench boost only gave me 8 points, I think the most points I'd had on the bench all season was 23 in game week 13. And in that game week, in game week 13, the whole starting 11 only got 37 points, which was pretty soul destroying, to be honest. It was at that point where there was loads of decrease in ranks. And in that week, Ward had a clean sheet and bonus. Tarkowski had a clean sheet, and Andreas had 2 assists and bonus points. Uh, so I think I'd had left a lot of points on the bench this season. So maybe that is something that I do need to look at next season. I do think the bench boost is overrated in the sense that people try and use it for double game weeks, but I think we've said it recently in the videos when you're using your bench boost. I think if you're doing your lineup and the players on your bench all have a good game week in terms of fixtures coming up, I think you just use it then, whether it's a double or not. I think any game week your bench can just do really well, depending on if they're going to play or not. Which brings us on to this game week. Now, I didn't manage to break into the top mill, which was a little disappointing. Um, but the last game week is always so chaotic, I think, and it can go either way. There was loads of goals, as we predicted, and I think not having Kane cost me, really. Maybe I need to take more risks next season, although my overall rank is the second highest of the season, and my highest overall rank was the week before and to be honest, I think it is good to have a strong finish. It was really a season of two halves for me. I actually think that a lot of the mid-range to cheaper players I got right more often than not, and the big hitters at the wrong times cost me, especially not having Haaland early on and probably someone like Trippier. But I do think in terms of playing fantasy, I didn't do too badly on the weekly decisions. It just got a few major decisions wrong, um, which kind of skewed it early on. Like I said earlier, like a lesson learned would be to jump off players quicker, especially the big ones if the teams are also playing bad, such as Salah, Son, Trent, Robbo at the early stage of the season, and even taking an 8 point hit at that time would have been worth it in hindsight. But I guess you never really know when these players will turn it around if they're off form. So I'll probably just have to wait until they do and then miss out on a few points initially before getting them back in. But like I said at the start of the video, in terms of the channel, um, I'm really grateful for all that support this season, and the increase has been great. I'm really looking forward to next season as well. So hopefully, you had a good season. You're looking forward to next season, and thank you for all the support. Like I say, have a great summer, and I will see you in the next season.